Ari, this is What If numero 25. It is the Atlantis attacks one. I mentioned this in my very long and barely watched video all about that crossover. This is what if the Marvel superheroes had lost Atlantis attacks. The basic plot of Atlantis attacks, or simply AA if you want, was that some baddies, they were trying to bring the evil seven-headed serpent god to our dimension. That is him there. And this is all the Marvel superheroes. Well, not them all, just some of them. I like this cover though. It reminds us of the 25th anniversary of Marvel, when they did a bunch of covers celebrating that, and I had a frame like this with a bunch of characters around it. We start off and we open up with the big baby in his nappy, and he actually sums up Atlantis attacks fairly well. He just tells the main parts, skips over the filler issues, the lucky bugger. It started off when the Silver Surfer was in space and he accidentally released this baddie called Gore from some space gas that he was trapped in. And then Gore went to Earth and he hooked up with the sexy lady who looks gorgeous there, and they were going to bring the serpent god to Earth, and to do this they tricked the seamen from Atlantis into going to war with the surface world, and they were going to use all the casualties from that war as blood sacrifices to the evil serpent god. And then they had this rehab. It was ran by Madame Hydras, who sadly isn't in this comic, but I think that is probably for the best, because the thing is, she's so fucking pretty you would just get distracted. The rehab though, it was a front, it was a sham. They were taking in junkies and drug addicts, and instead of helping them or curing them, they were just injecting them with the serpent serum, which transforms people into serpent men. It is from Captain America. Captain America issue 341 to 345. I just did a little footnote there. Can I have a job, Marvel? So they were going to use a rehab and transform humans into serpent people, but Spider-Man and Daredevil and Doctor Strange, they exposed it. They had the whole thing shut down. So then what they did is they kidnapped 7 women to be brides of the serpent god. And naturally, you'll see, they kidnapped the invisible wife from the Fantastic Fours, because as I've said before, she's like the ultimate wife of all comic books. They didn't have even bothered with the other 6. They should have just gotten her, because she would be the best at it. There is a big picture there with loads of heroes. Most of them aren't really in this story that much. This is an issue of What If, and if you don't know what If is, the idea of What If is that it shows an alternate reality where what if something else happened. And this one is what if the Marvel superheroes lost Atlantis attacks. Firstly, Seaman, he dies at the start of the story, which is a good start to any story. Secondly, Madame Hydras wins. Her rehab, it transforms people into serpent men, and there is Peacemaker and Moon Man as serpents. I kind of wish that they just shown a picture of her going mad with power or orgasmic at her victory. But the final nail in the coffin is when the god in the sun refuses to come to Earth and help fight the evil serpent god. And I always do this. I say I'm going to do something and then I forget. I said I was going to do the first appearance of the god that lives in the sun, and I still haven't. So we continue on from that part of the story. The Avengers, some of them, they were fighting the serpent god in his home dimension, where he's in his true form, where he's inside out. And straight away, Quasar, he gets shot away and he falls off into the abyss. And then the Thing, he tries to fight the Serpent God, but he gets all swallowed up. And even Doctor Strange, his magic, it isn't as powerful in this dimension, and he ends up just getting burnt alive, like down to a skeleton. And Thor, he's trying to fight, but it's not really much use. And like, what a way to start a comic! Like, the characters, they're dropping like flies. And then we see in the real world, the Serpent God has finally escaped, and all the other Avengers, they're getting ready to fight it. The Smurf from the Excellent Men and the Wasps, they get burnt straight away, and then Hank Gordon gets swallowed up as well. And this is actually a continuity error, because Hank Gordon, he wasn't there for this part of the story. Like, he wasn't part of this little team. He was off in a subplot where he was actually looking for this base elsewhere, and him and US Agent, they found the High Digivolutionaries base from the crossover the year before instead. Like, it was like a little wink, a little joke. And this bit here, this reminded me of current comic book pros and like Marvel Comics, how they all eat their own. Well, the Serpent God, he eats gore, and then he burns the sexy woman, because he had no more need for them anymore. This is like a cautionary tale. And really, it is a shame that he burnt her, because she is hot. Well, now she literally is, but like... Actually, I think I said in my Atlantis Attacks review, I don't understand why her and Madam Hydra's, why they weren't chosen to be brides of the Serpent God. Because they'd have been up for it, and they are a lot more sexy than a stupid whore from the Excellent Men or the Smurf woman. So some more Avengers show up with the Fantastic Force. Avengers assemble, that is like their catchphrase, and then they all die. This is a really packed comic, by the way, really long. And honestly, I sort of feel like little bits, like this whole bit here, they kind of need a bit more, like they need fleshing out. Even though this is meant to be an alternate reality where everything went wrong, I still feel like characters like Captain America and all the Avengers, they deserve a better showing than all being killed off quickly like this, and most of it is off panel. The only survivor from the whole fight is Thor, because when he was battling the Serpent God, he got like flung away. Now you can see the whole world is fucked. Serpent men are walking around. You see, what they did was they put the serpent serum in the water supply. So now everyone is like a serpent man. And if you look, even Spider-Man, he is one. But luckily, there is a small band of characters who either don't need a drink or who have healing powers that weren't transformed into serpents too. And this is like the ragtag team of protagonists. We have got Thor, he's kind of like the leader. We have got Wolfman from the Excellent Men, because he has healing powers. We have got the Whore's daughter, because she has got the Phoenix Force. Mr. Doom there, not really sure how he was free from it, because all he's doing is wearing armour. He still has to like drink at the end of the day. Maybe he's the only one that had a water purifier. And there's the Hulk, he's wearing a spiffy suit. Saberclaw, he has got healing powers. Jesus Christ, he probably just turned the water into wine. And this is Cloak from Cloak and Dagger. I like this though. I always like this little setup where you have a bunch of random characters being forced to team up against a greater evil. And here we have got a good mix of flagship heroes, and we've got rookies, and we've got villains, and we've got like a lesser known character like Jesus. Saberclaw, he proposes that their plan should be to kill the brides. But I don't really see how this is a viable plan. Like, the problem is the big serpent god. The brides aren't really doing anything. I suppose you could say this is like Saberclaw being a creep, and he wants to murder helpless brainwashed women for like kicks. Something else I like though is the little interactions, and like the rest of them, they don't really like Saberclaw, even Mr. Doom, because Saberclaw insults him here. And Mr. Doom, he says, Despite Saberclaw's disrespectful tone toward me, a breach of manners you shall pay for, mutant. Any time, Rusty. I like that, but I'm highlighting it because it sets something up that never happens. Like, you expect some sort of a payoff to this, where Mr. Doom maybe leaves Saberclaw to die, or like, when Saberclaw has outlived his usefulness, Mr. Doom just turns around and kills him. But now comes of this, they don't share any more dialogue, or really even a scene again. I do like these little interactions though, but as I said before, this comic is really packed. On one hand, you really get your money's worth, but on the other, you sort of feel like this story probably should be 2 issues of this length. They do agree on the plan to kill the brides because that must be like the only plan they have, I guess. But Cloak and Jesus, they're not into it because they don't want to kill anyone. And Wolfman says that he wants the whore from the Excellent Men for himself. And knowing her, she would probably still shag him, even though she's meant to be married to both Cyclist and a fucking snake at this point. She would just jump at any chance to shag another bloke. She would fuck all of these, even her daughter, and it wouldn't be sexy, it would just be disgusting. Again though, I do feel like we're missing something, because Wolfman, he is talking about the whore, and her daughter is there, and she doesn't say anything. Like, this plan proposes to kill her mum, and she doesn't even have a line. Although, again, her mum is terrible, so actually this does make sense. We cut back and we see Quasar flying through space, because if you remember, he didn't actually die, he just got like thrown away. And I like this as well, because Quasar, I really like Quasar, and Quasar is a good character to spotlight. I like things like this, where even though we have flagship characters like Wolfman and Thor, it does well to showcase less major characters like Quasar alongside them. So Quasar, he is flying in space, and he goes back to where the fight was, and he finds the dead bodies of Doctor Strange and the Thing, and then he's like, no, like in Star Wars Episode 3, Return of the Sith. And then we get on with this silly little plan. The Serpent God, he is there, and what's going to happen is, Mr. Doom and Phoenix, they're going to go off and fight the Serpent God. And the rest, they're going to go and kill the brides. I just think this plan is stupid. Like, they should all be going to fight the Serpent God. I don't think Saberclaw or Wolfman would really do that much against him, and the Hulk would probably just get eaten up like the Thing, but at least the Hulk, he is really strong, so he could be useful momentarily. And Jesus, he could do something with his energy powers, and Cloak could end this really quickly, actually. He could just, like, whip off his cloak and have it all around, like, the Serpent God, and just like, suck him off and teleport him to the darkness dimension. But I guess this is meant to be, like, a 2-pronged attack, I think. The comic doesn't really say it, but I think these ones that aren't going to fight the Serpent God, they're effectively a diversion. They're like a distraction, and they're kind of to draw attention away from the bigger fight with the Serpent God. Because you could see, the Serpent Men, they start attacking them straight away. There's Peacemaker and Daredevil, and Saberclaw, he gets shot, and there's Dr. Magnets, he shows up, Serpent Man, Dr. Magnets, and Wolfman, he jumps down, and he kills them, and you can see Jesus isn't into this. Then we see them fight a bunch of Serpent Man versions of superheroes. Hulk, he fights Steel Man from the Excellent Men. And then Cloak, he fights Excellent Force. And he sucks them off into his cloak. And there is Serpent Spider-Man. And Hulk, he punches Rouge into orbit. And I will say, these Serpent versions of the superheroes are fucking scary. Like, they freak us out. And here we see Saberclaw. He is healing from his gunshot wound, and he gets up and he kills the Peacemaker. And then Wolfman, he kills Daredevil. And at this point, you might realise, hold on, They're not even doing what they said they were gonna do. Like, their plan was to kill the brides, not just kill random serpent men. And like, there's been no mention at all. Like, one of them going, "Hurry up, we've got to get to the brides," or "We didn't have time for this." Jesus, he has caught Pillock and Longshot, and he refuses to kill them because he's Jesus, obviously. He's a good Samaritan who died for our sins and came back to life, and then came back to life again as a Marvel character. So Cloak suggests that Jesus sends them into his cloak so they can at least live. And then Saberclaw calls them wimps. And then the brides show up, and that is convenient because these characters have just wasted so much time not doing their actual mission. The brides, they're all brainwashed and they're worshipping their serpent god husband, which is wrong because not only is that rape, it is also bestiality. And this scene that follows is probably the worst bit of the whole comic. The brides, they just overpower and quickly kill all these characters, like, really easily, and it just doesn't work. Like, firstly, Storms, she electrocutes Saberclaw and he like burns, but Saberclaw has a healing power. He would come back from this, and just a couple of pages ago they even showed him coming back from gunshot wounds. And then we have got the Invisible Wife. She puts the Hulk's head into an invisible force field to cut off his oxygen, and then he eventually turns back into David Banner and they beat him to death. And this one actually makes sense. It's alright. It's just the rest I find the whole bit to be a bit rubbish. Like, they were just quickly disposing of these characters, and other than the Hulk, they didn't really give much thought to the rest of them. Meanwhile, someone who is clearly Quasar, because you can see he's wearing Quasar's magic bracelets, he finds Doctor Strange's magic necklace. And then we cut back and we see the heroes fighting the Serpent God. And this is much better. This is the main fight. It's the heroes fighting against impossible odds. I always like this. Even when the hero inevitably loses, they come out of it seeming fantastic. Mr. Doom, he's trying to tell the Hulk's daughter to use all of the Phoenix Force. But she is like, "I can't, you don't realise how powerful it is." And then he throws his hammer at the Serpent God and it swallows it. And then the serpent starts burning Mr. Doom. And I'm just going to read this bit out because it is really good. "Not even my force field can long protect me from the monster's incredible mystic power. But what am I thinking? Defeat is for lesser men. The force field must hold, even if I have to put all my armor's energy into doing it. It will hold. For I am Doom. Do you hear me, monster? I am Doom." And then he dies. Like I said, even though he died, that was fucking amazing. Like, that was one of the best Mr. Doom things I've ever read. Doom's death, ironically, is the motivation that she needed to tap into the rest of the Phoenix Force. And look at that, she is raging out of control there. And it actually says that this is the first real threat the seven-headed Serpent God has thus far faced. He is trying to summon his hammer back from inside the Serpent God's belly, and Phoenix is really going at the Serpent God. She's like, "No, I cannot, I must not fail." Kind of ripping off Mr. Doom's speech there, but I understand it was like a high-pressure situation, and she probably couldn't think of how original. Thor's hammer, though, it comes back to him, and when it's coming out, it destroys one of the Serpent's 7 heads. But sadly, Phoenix exhausts her power completely. She pushes it too far, and it just cuts out, and she falls limp to the ground, where every bone in her young body will be shattered on impact. This is going badly, innit? Like, they didn't get any of the brides, and they've only managed to kill 1 head. And all that's left is 4. And Thor, he does that thing he always does. He starts prattling on about being Thor and he rushes to fight it. Thou dost not face a mortal female now, sexless fucking pig, but the righteous fury of a fairyman born. For Anthony Hopkins, for fairyland, for glory. And he pretty much is horrifically burnt alive. But before he dies, a big hand comes out of the ground and it takes him away. And this is Mother Nature. She saved Thor from dying. This seems random, but if you read the Thor issue, you'll remember that Thor went to her for help. And she said that she couldn't help, that she wasn't really powerful enough or a fighter. But she wanted life to survive. And this is like her attempt at that. But the story isn't over yet, because the Silver Surfman returns to Earth. And one of my big problems with Atlantis Attacks is it opened with an issue of the Silver Surfman where he released the body and then the body went to Earth. And Silver Surfman, he just shrugged his shoulders and was like, Earth is not my problem. And that was just horrifically out of character. So it is nice to see that this issue of What If, which isn't even canon, it has a better handle on the character. He shows up and he's like really regretful about having ignored the baddie early on, and he blames himself for all this horrible stuff. So he starts fighting the Serpent God, and he's doing an alright job of it. He even destroys another of its heads. And then he's getting ready to go back and destroy some more, but he gets blown away by it. And then Quasar shows up, and he has loads of cosmic power now. He's like massive. He's the same size as the Serpent God. And as I said, I love Quasar, and this is really good. It's really cool. He has got his magic bracelets, he has got Doctor Strange's magic necklace, and he has got loads of Eternity's cosmic power. And sadly, we don't get to see much of it. But the story just quickly ends. He whips out the magic necklace and he sucks the both of them off into the necklace where they will battle forever, for all time. And it's just a really abrupt ending, and I wanted to see more of this, really. So the story ends. Even though the Serpent God is defeated, Earth's pretty much a state. Everyone is Serpent Men, and that is that. This is a good comic. It is a good issue of What If. I think I said in the Atlantis Attacks video that this story is, ironically, much better than the story it is based on. I read Atlantis Attacks and I thought it was kind of rubbish. And then I read this, and this does a better job of conveying the threat of Atlantis Attacks, of explaining the story and showing why what is happening in Atlantis Attacks is important. And after reading this, I went back and read Atlantis Attacks again, and I liked it a lot more. I do like this comic, it is really good, but as I said, it feels like it could use a bit more space. But even in spite of that, it really fits a lot into the page count. I recommend this, and I'm going to give it 7 thumbs up.